Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today we're going to talk about Battlefield Hardline's fourth and final DLC, Betrayal. The DLC comes with new achievements, new assignments, new camos, new paints for your vehicles. There's a new gun range for testing weapons, a gun bench for customizing the camos on your weapons and your soldier. There's new weapon licenses and battle packs. Then there's 4 new maps, 11 new weapons. Then there's a bunch of new melee weapons, including a gigantic Inquisition sword, which just looks totally ridiculous. And then there's 2 new vehicles, a snowmobile and a hearse, because what Battlefield game is complete without those 2 vehicles? Now that's generally what's included in that DLC, but what I want to focus on right now is a map called Chinatown, which is the remake of Grand Bazaar from Battlefield 3 in Battlefield Hardline. This is one of the most requested maps to have been remade in Battlefield 4. DICE did not remake it. They gave us a whole bunch of other requested maps, but never Grand Bazaar for some reason, which again was one of the top voted maps consistently throughout all the polls and what people wanted to see remade. Now Hardline took this information and remade it in their game engine, and they did a considerably better job than the No Shark Canals Team Deathmatch remake that was implemented recently in BF4, where they changed the scaling and sizes of stuff so that the map really didn't play out anything like the original map did. And this time around, they've actually done a perfect 1-to-1 scale. They have changed some stuff and added in some new routes that I, for the most part, actually agree with. The map itself has had a complete overhaul. Now it's got a Chinese theme to it. It's called Chinatown, and it looks beautiful. The new render technologies, the new lighting, there's rain, lots of cool lights, lots of cool new features like exploding fireworks and other cool stuff around the map. It's absolutely awesome running around this reimagination of Grand Bazaar. But there is one important aspect of it that they did change, and that is that it takes place at nighttime now. The contrast between muzzle flash, the bright neon lights, and then the complete darkness of the alleyways makes it incredibly hard to see people and definitely changes up the combat in certain areas from what I remember. The original Grand Bazaar, it was relatively easy to see your opponents, so you would have straight up firefights down alleyways. Right now it feels much more reliant on 3D spotting, so it's kind of turned into a spotting game where you're just kind of spamming the spot button, and then IR and V sights seem like they're much more important as well, especially for alleyway combat, where before I could see people a little bit better and now it's incredibly difficult. So that has changed up significantly. Something that I could see them easily going in the design process saying, what if we made it at night? And everybody's like, yeah, that's an awesome idea. But nighttime combat shifts up engagement distances and how people can approach targets pretty drastically. So it has changed up the combat a bit. Now, unfortunately, this map that so many Battlefield fans have been waiting for a long time is not really going to mean much to somebody playing on PC. We're going to be able to play this for maybe a week before the servers start dying off on PC again. If you look at the stats here, you can see that there's very few concurrent players. I took these yesterday before the DLC came out to get the averages of Battlefield Hardline and Battlefield 4. As you can see, Battlefield 4's got over 14, usually more times as many players playing at any given moment than Hardline does, and it's actually on a resurgence. Battlefield 4 it's come back a bit in its player population, so it's doing very well where Hardline has kind of just teetered off, and that really sucks as a PC Battlefield fan. Been waiting for this map forever. It's finally here. It looks cool. And now I'm just not really going to be able to sink as much time into it as I want to. I want to be able to commit to it, to learn the alleys, the paths, the strategies. But there's not a lot of point in it because I'm not going to be able to use that in the near future. Again, if you're a console player, you're going to get much more longevity out of this DLC than a PC player, so that's pretty good news, and my PC complaints should not apply to you. Now, how about the other features in this DLC? Well, we got a shooting range, which I think is in some ways better than the Battlefield 4 shooting range. What it basically allows you to do is customize your weapon with what kind of grips and attachments, and then go in and shoot at some targets and see how your recoil is, how good your recoil compensation is. Granted, the targets that you're shooting don't necessarily record every single bullet that hits them. I think this has to do with the Frostbite engine and just how it calculate some of the bullet impacts on certain surfaces sometimes, and also the targets themselves can be a little bit confusing. If they're just straight up white pieces of paper, it would be easier to tell what you want. I mean, Counter-Strike has been doing shooting ranges perfectly for a long time. Granted, they've been mods, but it does allow people to sort of work on their recoil control and test out weapons in just a much more pure environment. I like the aesthetics of the shooting range, but it could be a little bit better if they just did it with the pure intention of recoil control and understanding how your weapon performs with certain attachments. Now, with the shooting range also comes the gun bench, where you can make custom camos for your weapons. You can also make custom camos for your soldiers in game. This is something that I feel applies much better to the Hardline than it ever would Battlefield 4, or if you did it in BF4, you would have to greatly restrict the amount of colors you have to work with. Here you can see I can make a pink M16, which is something that I've always kind of wanted to do, and then you can make all these crazy skull camo color combinations on the Chris Vector. You can make cool standard camos that I was putting on an FAL, which is very cool. I like doing this. It's very fun. It's very creative. I'm glad that it's not in Battlefield 4 simply because I don't want to see people running around with pink and yellow weapons in the middle of a military-esque like jungle combat. It would just be silly. And Hardline is definitely set up more for goofy and wacky antics as the game has evolved to incorporate a lot of crazy camos. Now, how about the other three maps? It might surprise you guys that Chinatown actually wasn't my favorite map. I just don't think it played out as well with 64 players, which is all I could play it on. But Cemetery certainly played out quite well. There's lots of cover. It's this big, grandiose, silly-looking map, but it's really fun to play on. It's the map that has the hearse, so you can drive around road-killing people and then, I guess, put them in the back of the hearse. Then there's Thin Ice, which is a very open, snowy map with a frozen river and lots of snow. It looks cool. I would say it plays out very similar to Backwoods. If you like that map, then you'll be happy. If you don't like that map, then you probably won't care for this one. And last up, we have Alcatraz, which I think is very cool that they attempted to recreate Alcatraz in a Battlefield map. If you've ever been to Alcatraz, it's an incredibly unique and interesting place right in the middle of the San Francisco Bay. You can see San Francisco and the Golden Gate Bridge from the map itself, which is cool. Definitely not as windy as I remember when I went to Alcatraz. Maybe the wind would really get in the way of hearing your opponents on this map. I like the outside area of this map. I think it's just beautifully rendered, and it actually plays out pretty well. Once you get inside the prison, it is complete chaos. There are so many angles and so many Molotov cocktails and incendiary grenades and just shit to worry about. I didn't really like playing on the inside of the prison. I just thought there's too many angles and it wasn't that much fun to play on. Outside was fun, inside is a nightmare. But if you like that kind of totally chaotic infantry gameplay, then it might be your thing. Now, although Visceral did finally make good on their promise to implement a gun bench, there was something interesting about this DLC that I think is kind of slipping under the rug here, and that is the original description of the Battlefield Hardline Betrayal DLC reads as this: "There's a rat in every operation, and players will have to find out who to trust. Available winter early 2016. Now, is it me, or does that sound like they're going to implement a new game mode that is pretty much identical to Trouble in Terrorist Town? This is what I got from the description. I mean, nothing about the description so far really reflects what's going on in the game itself. It's just 4 new maps, a bunch of guns, gun bench, stuff like that. There's nothing about rats and all this other stuff going on. It seems to indicate that there was going to be another game mode similar to Trouble in Terrorist Town. I was quite looking forward to this. This was like actually one of the features that I think I was most excited about when I first heard about this DLC. But of course, Visceral never confirmed any of these details, so it's kind of hard to complain about something that wasn't necessarily solidified but only vaguely implied. So they covered themselves in that sense, but at the same time, I think we all kind of knew what you meant by that little statement there. So it's kind of disappointing not to see that game mode. Again, as a PC player, it probably would have been almost impossible to find that game mode even being played, but at the same time, it would have been interesting to see a Battlefield rendition of Trouble in Terrorist Town. Anyway, that wraps it up for the first look in Battlefield Betrayal DLC, and unfortunately, probably my last look. As always, thanks for watching, guys, and this is LevelCap signing off.